Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Are we on? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Good stuff. Our next presenter also just made it in this afternoon in order for tonight. He's been overseas. He's also spent years overseas as a missionary, but the Lord has laid Aotearoa on his heart because of a very special opportunity that we have. Now, just before I give him, well, before he takes the other microphone, I want to remind you of the box. And I want to remind you that there's a world outside of that box that Max so graphically portrayed, you know, beyond New Zealand, Cook Islands, Tahiti, Chile. Draw that triangle over, all the way over, all the way over. Now imagine if this is New Zealand, the square, but that triangle over there is the stuff you can do outside of your church or your ministry. And that other triangle up above, you know, beyond second and third base, is stuff you can do from where you are to impact other parts of the world. As these people tonight are sharing different stories of what Kiwis are doing around the world to make an impact, open your heart and allow the Lord to give you some ideas of possibly ways that He could use you or your church or your ministry beyond what you're already doing. You might say, no way, we're already doing too much. His grace is sufficient.
So, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I thought so. Stand up. My name's Ross, and I wanted to link in with the session we had earlier on today. You can take a seat. I'm not going to get you to do anything other than that, just to get a bit of air in the system. My name's Ross Georgiou. I'm from New Zealand, from Cambridge. You might remember the previous session was about families, and I've got a differently shaped family. My wife's from Greece. As I said, I'm from New Zealand. I've got two boys. One boy's about this big. And when he was this big, I said to him, I said, Mum's from Greece, Dad's from New Zealand, you're living in Germany, where are you from? And this little kid, you know, as the wheels were turning in his head, he goes, I'm from Disneyland. I've got the joy tonight to talk about something that's coming up in front of us, and that's the Rugby World Cup. An awesome event for New Zealand. I've had the privilege of living in Greece and living in Germany, as you heard from that story, and being involved in major sporting events. I've seen them leveraged by the church really, really well, and I've seen them used by the church not so well. And New Zealand has a great opportunity to make the most of the Rugby World Cup that's coming up in New Zealand. It is the biggest event New Zealand is likely to see over the next 30 to 40 years. Now, some of you I know already are thinking rugby and sport, it's not really about me. Well, it actually is about you. I'm going to lean back on you. Our leader, John Key, says this about sport. He says, I hold this theory quite firmly, that whether the country is winning or losing at sport is very important. That actually defines the mood of the nation. Now, it's one of the factors, not the only one, but is a really important factor in how we feel about ourselves. We're a country that likes sport. We're interested in sport, and we feel good about New Zealand when we're performing well on the sports field. The Rugby World Cup is going to be very, very big for New Zealand. Martin Snedden, some of you know, is the CEO. This Rugby World Cup, this major sporting event, is very, very unique. It is very much not just about the rugby on the one hand, but on the New Zealand experience on the other. He says 85,000 people are going to come to New Zealand. 5% are interested in whether the All Blacks are going to win or not. That means a lot of other people are coming to New Zealand for a New Zealand experience. What Martin Snedden is doing with making the Rugby World Cup both a rugby event and a cultural event is unique to the world of major sports. It's unique. Cultural events around major sports are usually ad hoc. They happen more by chance. He's being very, very deliberate, and he's trying to create a legacy. And he's also very keen for a legacy of the church in New Zealand. I want to show you a 2-minute clip. I hope it works out well. This is what the organisers of the Rugby World Cup have put together, a 2-minute clip. You will see in it as much about rugby as you will about New Zealand. So let's run it now. Given us a beautiful country to live in? Yeah. So when is this event? 9th of September, 23rd of October. It's a little bit under 200 days away. There's 20 teams coming from around the world. They're going to be playing in 13 locations, from Whangarei all the way through to Invercargill in the south. That also is very, very unique for major sports. They'll stay in 23 locations. The Aussies have won it twice. The Boks have won it twice, and they're the current holders. There's one in the room. The English have won it once. And unfortunately, despite the best win-lose ratio in the world, us Kiwis, the All Blacks, have only won it once. The good news is, though, on home soil, we've got a 100% win ratio of the World Cup. Look, in terms of size, this event is number 3 in the world. Olympics is first, Football World Cup is second, and rugby is number 3. Not the last one, but the one before. There were 3.3 billion viewings of the Rugby World Cup from 205 countries. It's huge, and it's huge for our country. We set up an organisation called Engage. It's an umbrella organisation that the churches can work together under. The question is, were the organisers of the Rugby World Cup willing to work with the churches? About 5 months ago, I want to say that I finally, after a lot of work and a lot of people praying, got to meet with Martin Snedden after laying out a proposal by email. That was through the introduction of Michael Jones. What better ambassador to have? Within about 2 sentences, Martin Snedden asked me, "Are you crazy?" Straight to my face. "Are you crazy?" And I said, "No, I'm very serious about this." And he said, "Good, because I've been thinking about this and thinking about what the churches can do for quite some time." Since that time, I want you to know, and there's some people in this room that have been part of these meetings, Martin has met together with his leadership with heads of churches of New Zealand to talk about the type of proposal and the way the churches of New Zealand will serve, will minister, will be able to share the hope that we have, to explain the hope that we have during the Rugby World Cup. Now, I want to go back to the Rugby World Cup and the festival, the cultural experience. If it wasn't for that cultural experience, we'd be struggling to serve at the Rugby World Cup. But because of that cultural experience, we have great opportunity here in New Zealand. There are a number of things being done and being organised, and I realise my time is short. I do have a brochure, and you're welcome to clear the tables of these brochures and give them to people in your churches and organisations. It may not light your fire, the Rugby World Cup, but I bet you there's people in your churches that are asking, what are we going to do? I want to just touch on 2 or 3 quick areas to give you a little bit of a picture of the types of things that we're talking about. Now, the ideas are wide and varied, but I want to share a few so you get how much the organisers are excited about what the churches can offer. One of the things that we're talking about doing is hosting the families of the rugby nations from around the world, especially the Minnow nations, the Romanias, the Georgias, the Russias, the Namibias, those nations. They're not professional rugby nations like New Zealanders. And we're saying, let's put them up in Kiwi Christian homes. We've got a love for God, we've got a love for others, hopefully we enjoy rugby, and we definitely got a passion for our country. Great place to put these people up. Martin's so excited about this idea. At this stage, it's given to no other organisation in New Zealand. It's given to the churches. It's not given to Rotary. It's not given to the New Zealand Rugby Union. It's given to the churches. That's huge. There are a whole range of community events that are going to take place. Just to give you a couple of ideas, one is like a mini event. Opening series, games, closing ceremony for kids. And the kids go through these events and they come to the end and the parents are invited along, all with Christian principles built in. There's going to be training on it in July. There's many things, and like I say, time is of the essence, so I'm going to close. 4 action points. 4 action points to think about. First is, take that away and clear your tables, take them and give them to other people. There's some out on the tandem tables out in the hall, and I'm away first thing tomorrow morning, but Frances is here, so if you want to connect with her, that would be great. Take those away, register online. That's where you're going to get the information of the types of resources and services and ideas Okay? Those things will be loaded up by the 7th of May. Second, consider, and I think this is key, consider how your church or your mission or your organisation can on the one hand leverage the Rugby World Cup for your vision, on the other hand contribute to the Rugby World Cup and the experience in New Zealand. Your leaders should be already somewhat thinking about that. Third thing is, find out what your denomination's focus is. For instance, I know Anglicans and Salvation Army are already talking about social justice. They're already talking about social justice. And the fourth and final thing is, as I say, 7th of May is packet release. It's going to come out on the website of all the resources and services and ideas, whether they be a Sport New Testament or one of those things I just talked about before. July will be the training. 9th of September is when the Rugby World Cup starts. And although it seems like a long way away to get organised, it's actually coming very, very quickly. For me personally, and I think for many people in New Zealand, the Rugby World Cup has the potential, I go back to what these gentlemen have been saying, to create legacy. The type of legacy I'm talking about is the church being the heart and the soul of community. The church being the go-to people in community. Not the leftover thought, but the first thought. At this major event, the biggest event in New Zealand for the next 30 or so years, that is the possibility and the opportunity.